we talked to Dr. Win Kiyama and Jane Naito about a new exhibit kicking off the Obon season in the San Francisco Bay Area called American Bon Odori, Dancing in Joy and Remembrance. Dr. Win Kiyama explains his interest in documenting this exhibit's intersection of spiritual and Japanese American cultural themes.
I've been a lifelong fan of Obon and Obon dance, and I grew up in San Jose, and so there's a big community of Japanese American Buddhists there and a large temple. And so that's where I first experienced Obon and Bon Odori or Obon dance. I started to talk with Reiko Iwanaga because of her father-in-law, Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga. From there, we started doing different projects together that documented his life and the early history of Bon Odori in the continental United States. And that's when we teamed with Yumi Hata to do these kinds of preservation and documentation projects.
Jade Naito, co-curator of the exhibit, talks about the creation of the exhibit. Jade has roots back to her grandmother, Teruko Naito, who along with Reverends Yoshio Iwanaga and Masao Washioka, who were early pioneers of Bon Odori here in the continental United States.
Well, it comes as how American Obon came to America, right? How Bon Odori came to America. It talks about how it, why it first started, how Obon dance started, the cultural aspect of it, the Buddhist aspect of it, and then also talks about how it came, in the 1930s from Hawaii. It started in Hawaii, and then it came to the U.S., and then it brings you all the way until modern day, Obon dance through the camp, pre and post. Well, I helped Professor Dr. Win Kiyama put together the exhibit. Since he's in Hawaii, he asked me to kind of help out locally to kind of put it together, do all the manpower, I guess. We asked, I'm on the Bay District Council, so I asked the Bay District Council members to please, ask their members to send items in. I also contacted a lot of the Buddhist churches in the Bay Area and asked them for things that they could loan me. Some of them sent me photographs of what they had. Some brought over physical items, and we kind of, picked and choose. So, like, for example, the lanterns are from BCSF. Some of the getas and uchiwas are from various Buddhist temples, posters, things like that.
Win talks briefly about the historic timeline of Bon Odori in Japan and here in the continental United States.
So the story of Obon dance in the continental United States begins in the 1930s, and that's primarily with Reverend Yoshio Iwanaga, but also other figures like Teruko Naito, who is the grandmother of Jane Naito, and Reverend Masao Washioka. All of them were working in the early 1930s and spreading Bon Odori to different West Coast communities. And the 1930s was a really robust time for Obon and Bon Odori. Also in Japan, you see new Bon Odori music being produced. So Tokyo Ondo, which is still a perennial favorite, was released in 1933, and this kind of heralded a boom of new Bon Odori music. 1930s, you see people playing taiko for Obon dancing. You see people masquerading in different communities in the dance circle, or dressed as samurai or geisha. With World War II, of course, the history of Japanese in Americas reaches that pivotal moment where Japanese and Japanese Americans were incarcerated in concentration camps. And in researching the way that people lived and what they celebrated and spent time on in the camps, I was able to look at Bon Odori, not only as a Buddhist activity primarily, but also for the larger community of Japanese Christians and unaffiliated Japanese all in the camps. It looks like Bon Odori happened in around half of the euphemistically called assembly centers, the temporary detention centers, and then all 10 of the War Relocation Authority camps, as well as some of the other camps that we don't often hear about, those administered by the Department of Justice, like the Santa Fe internment camp.
Wynn shares his excitement of how Bon Odori is being adopted in contemporary times.
So even though it has roots in Buddhism, it's the kind of memorial that everyone can participate in. And most folks who practice Bon Odori say the same thing about the dance. This is for everyone to celebrate and to remember those who have passed before us. So at this moment, I find it very exciting to be a Bon Dance fan because Bon Odori is being danced by a larger community than we've seen in its history. And I'm excited to see where it goes in the next 125 years.
This commemorative cultural arts series is presented by the American Bon Consortium at the National Japanese American Historical Society's Peace Gallery in San Francisco's Japantown now through September 30th, 2024. It is open to the public from Monday through Friday, noon to 5 p.m., and for Saturdays. Admission is free. This is Greg Valoria for Tomo Hirai for the Nichi Bei Cafe.